Hey everybody, welcome back to Design Edge. This is Seth tuning here today. Today I'm going to be bringing you a tool that we use at HCH for basically brand identity, and it's how we got started with our online presence as well as a variety of other marketing tools that we now use. Today's podcast is a brand new format, and I'm very happy to be trying this out for the first time as a sort of whiteboard doodle session. So please try and be patient with my drawing skills. I'm not a professional artist. I wish I was, but I'd like to pretend that I am sometimes. So don't be afraid to check out our website, humancenteredhealthcare.com, as well as give us some feedback in the comment section if you have any suggestions for us moving forward. With that being said, I hope you learned something today. So what does this idea begin with? Largely it begins with this guy. He was in ancient Greece. He had a lot of students. He taught a lot of things, politics, philosophy, and the sciences. But one of the more interesting things that he focused on was this thing called rhetoric. And the way he described rhetoric was through this whole triangle process. And this whole triangle process was an interesting visual way to capture this idea, which is where I got a lot of my inspiration from. But let's go ahead and talk about his triangle first. Ironically, we're going to go ahead and begin with a circle, and this is going to exist on the outside of the triangle, and it has to do largely with context. And the context of this whole triangle is basically rooted in exposition, or the setting, and then the plot and the plot lines. And so we're going to go ahead and start here with the purpose, or the aim, or the goal of this whole project, and that's basically to create a message. It's as simple as that. Then we're going to go ahead and move on to the right side of the triangle here, where we're going to talk about pathos. And pathos comes from the Greek word, and really just talking about being emotionally triggered. Not triggered, that's not the word I want to use, but emotionally charged. It's the audience. It's their concerns, their values, and their beliefs, as well as their emotions and their imagination. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the other base of the bigger picture triangle, and that's logos. And logos is focused on message. And the message comes from logical responses, which is the actual definition for logos directly in Greece. And then it's also factual, it's functional, and it's organized. And it leads you to question things. This brings us to what we're building for. We build for credibility here. We build for ethos. All ethos is the speaker. And what the speaker's whole goal is of course, like we said in the beginning, to create a message. But in creating a message, we want to have a credible message. We want to have the knowledge. We want to have the creativity. We also would like to have the reliability, and sort of along the similar lines, it's probably a made-up word, but the believability. And that's basically the old rhetorical triangle. Before we move on, we're going to go ahead and keep the same circle, but now we're going to go ahead and change the context, and the context becomes empathy. With the context becoming empathy, which is represented here by our heart, we have to incorporate a lot more of the human-centered design principles, because if we don't take extra precautions and steps to ensure that we focus on the human aspect of our whole brand first, then we lose a lot of touch and we lose a lot of our ideas, which is the whole second part of our context, is our ideas. This is what we base all of our whole shift upwards, if you will, towards the triangle. We start now with our purpose being the business and the brand, and we can go ahead and build our foundation on the speaker first. We want to focus on building credibility immediately through our speaker. Because if we don't have a good speaker, we won't have an audience and we won't have a message. The speaker has to have a mode, has to have a method, has to have experience, and all these things are shaped by gender, age, and other beliefs. So now we can go ahead and build up another foundation after we figured out the speaker, and we can move on to talk about the audience. With the audience, what we're really looking for is our reading and our writing motivations. A lot of times when we're working on branding, we're either writing something to them or we're reading something about them. And we have to look for the tone, and we have to be careful about our delivery. And this will elicit some sort of emotional response, and hopefully the emotional response that we're looking for. That way, we can build up to what we'd like to call, well, not even messages. We'd like to just call it logos, first of all. because this is the act of writing, or the acto writing, as I'd like to call it, but it's the act of. So we're going to cross it out and just call it the act of doing, because doing is more important than anything else. It's kind of more vague, but it's also something that we need to focus on more. And in saying that, we have these devices, we have these tools, and we have these stats. And what this does is it links them together to create the messages, but more than that, it creates a framework of design. And that's really the basics on how to create a brand or an identity. And for me, visually, this was the easiest way to describe it to my boss, Steve. And this made a perfect storm, a literal perfect storm. And it lighted a lot of fire in us, and it helped us along the way whenever we were stuck with writing blog posts or trying to figure out what to do with our social media. So let's review real quick. We started with the old rhetorical triangle, with our foundation being the logos and the pathos, building up to ethos. But this isn't really functional for most brands, because you can't end up with the speaker. You have to kind of start off with emotional responses and audiences in the speaker, and we have to build up to our message and the logic of the whole thing. It's sort of a doorway that leads upwards instead of sort of in a cycle. We didn't really want a cycle. We wanted a direct path. We wanted more of a musical approach to it, a more orged way to it. And that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll tune in next week on Thursday for our next podcast. And other than that, please feel free to check out our website, discover any of our other resources on our page, and definitely follow our blog posts. We publish Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays. Both Steve and I do, and we write on a ton of different topics. And of course, we'd like to start a discussion as well. So if you have any comments, please feel free to email us at steve@humancenteredhealthcare.com, or you can just directly leave comments under our YouTube channel, even on our blog pages. We have comments enabled finally, so go ahead and check us out and really try to help us build a community. Anyways, hope you learned something.
I'm in this theater, waiting for the ending. I'm in this hollow room, hitting the rewind. You're just a filament, hotel electric. You're just somebody passing by. Now I'm on a roll, little high. My missed connection, I don't wanna know how it ends. 'Cause now I'm on a roll, a little high. No recollection, I don't wanna know how it ends. Little high, my missed connection. I don't wanna know how it ends. And now I'm on a roll, little high, no recollection. I don't wanna know.